This picture makes me cry.
Why am I here today? To protest against the BBC's decision not to broadcast the appeal for Gaza.
I'm here to protest against the BBC, the fact that they didn't do the charity appeal for Palestine today.
The BBC have been absolutely biased in the way they've presented this whole Gaza situation, and it's disgraceful.
Because the BBC have refused to show this appeal, to give airtime to this appeal, which how anyone can consider that is right with all the terrible suffering of the people of Gaza.
I'm here because the BBC needs to wake up. We're not going to stand for this. I have cancelled my subscription, my television licence. I am not going to tolerate this, and all these people aren't, and all those thousands of people in the country who can't get here but who are writing emails and on the radio, etc.
But I think what the BBC has done today is outrageous. I can't understand who's persuaded them to do this, but it's got a lot of publicity for the cause.
Yeah, because I'd really like the BBC to reverse their decision, and it seems possible that maybe they will, so it's something definitely worth marching for.
I'm here to protest about what's happening in the Middle East and Gaza, and also to protest about the BBC and their refusal to show an appeal to raise funds for people who are suffering terribly in Gaza after the barbaric assault from Israel.
Well, I'm protesting against the massacre in Gaza and the position that the BBC take, which is anything but impartial.
Am I here today because I'm absolutely disgusted with what Israel's doing and how the BBC are complicit by not showing us fair coverage, not showing an appeal for aid to Gaza.
Because I know the difference between right and wrong. I'm not talking about politics, I'm talking about human beings. And whoever the perpetrators were, and we know that the Israeli tanks were there, and we know that they went in and they devastated Gaza, there is a huge difference between right and wrong. And we know what's right, and we know that the right thing to do is to stand up for these people in Gaza and make sure that the BBC, and now some of the other broadcasters have announced that they will be showing the DEC, that is the Disasters Emergency Committee appeal, they will be showing them on television and I hope on radio, and we want to say to the BBC, shame on you, how dare you not listen to the humanitarian cries of Gaza and the people of Gaza and make sure that the British people, who are generous to a fault, can listen and donate.
We're just here to express how we feel about what's happening and the injustice that's going over there. We also don't like the fact that the media here is portraying it as some 50-50 war when it's obviously an occupation.
Because I'm disgusted with the BBC and also with the Zionists, what they're doing.
I'm here because freedom of speech is being suppressed. The BBC has a public duty to the people. Free speech is a cornerstone of democracy, and the people need to hear the truth. And right now the BBC's stance is biased, and it's pandering to Zionist propaganda at the cost of humanitarian crisis in Gaza, so we have to make our voice heard. I myself have personal experience of oppression in a totalitarian Stalinist regime. And at times like that, the BBC is that glimmer of hope to people. And when the BBC refuses to show people the truth, it needs to be held accountable.
I'm here today to protest against the BBC's decision not to broadcast the DEC appeal. I'm an employee of the BBC, and I'm actually ashamed today to say that I work for an organisation that has very clearly made a political decision. It seems to me that we are able to support lots of different campaigns in the past. We've supported DEC campaigns in the Congo, in the Balkans, in Kosovo, Rwanda. All of these are political situations, and I do not see how this one is any different. So I think this decision shows that the BBC is controlled by Israeli interests at the very top echelons, and that's why I'm here.
We're all here because we're humanitarian. We think it's disgusting. Nobody stops the killing of innocent children. They have nothing. They bombed them from the air, sea and to tanks, and now they're living in rubble, no food, no water, no medicine. BBC refuses to air the aid for them.
They have dropped depleted uranium and they have dropped phosphorus bombs, and if you look it up and look at alternative news sources, you will find quite clearly that these are illegal weapons and they cook people from the inside out. They are absolutely and utterly horrific.
The BBC reported most of that as though it was some kind of proportionate response by Israel.
I'm here to call for the freedom for Palestine, because this thing's been going for like 60 years, before I'm born even, and it all depends on the international community, and they're spreading lies for 60 years. They didn't solve anything. So people now think, most of the people that lost their faith in the peaceful process.
Because back in 1983 I knew nothing about the Palestinian situation. That's when I went to Israel to work. I worked on an Israeli fighter project called the Lviv project, and while I was working and living in Palestine, it's when I became aware of the Palestinian situation. Up until then I'd known nothing about it because it's not publicised in the press a great deal of the history.
We're here to support the Palestinians, to say to the British government that it's an absolute disgrace they've allowed Israel to kill over 1,400 people, and they should demand immediately the end of the siege of Gaza and send millions of pounds worth of humanitarian aid to Gaza, because the British are responsible for what's happening in Palestine.
Because I support the Palestinian cause, and I support particularly the Palestinians in Gaza, and I think it's shameful that the British government does not support the people of Gaza, and I think that it's a shame on the world that Palestine isn't free, and Palestine must be free.
I'm here in solidarity with the Palestinian people, and I want to support their resistance against Israeli occupation, and I want to show as many people around the world as possible that there are many British people who care profoundly about what is happening in Palestine.
The other great shibboleth that the BBC stands behind is that we report both sides. Right or wrong, we report both sides. This is irresponsible journalism. It means abandoning a search for truth. It means not asking who is right or wrong, who is lying. It is a travesty of impartiality, and most of all, it is a betrayal of those journalists inside the BBC who fight to report the truth on Gaza, who recognise a war crime when they see it.
Have you ever seen an anti-war conference televised by the BBC? Just think about it.
The least the BBC can do is to run a charity appeal to save those victims of these soldiers who receive donations from London.
The BBC would never be allowed to broadcast any message from Jesus, because Jesus told us to love our neighbours. And if the Archbishop of Canterbury read the 10 Commandments, it might upset the Israeli government.
The BBC's decision is not an editorial decision. It is a political decision. And what has brought myself and millions of other people to protest is because we have always had a tradition to condemn political interference with the press. We believe in a free press, we believe in truth reporting, and the BBC has crossed that line by not supporting the appeal from the Disaster Emergency Committee.
The BBC thanked Hamas and thanked the people of Palestine for saving their journalists. It's now time for the BBC journalists to help save the people of Palestine.